Good morning, everyone from India, and good afternoon, good evening from people joining from other parts of the world. Okay, so in yesterday's session, we had gone through creating APIs and connecting to a MongoDB database. So, if you've not already seen the session yesterday, you will be provided with the recording and the link to a repository where the code is posted. Um, I'm also going to paste the link of the backend repository on the chat so you can take a look at it right now if you want to. Now, this backend service or this backend application basically serves as APIs or a means to giving us the data that we need to show the posts and comments that we want to show in the UI. So on the screen right now, I have a wireframe of how I want my UI to look like. Now, what we are going to make today will look something like this, if not exactly this. But this is just to give an idea about what we are going to build. Uh, so you will receive the recordings over email if you haven't already, and I'll make sure that I convey this to my team as well. Yeah. So before I begin, I want to confirm if all of you are able to see my screen. All right. So what we had created yesterday was APIs for us to register a new user, log in to an existing user's account, log out from an account, and creating a post and seeing a list of posts. Now, the repository that I have shared also contains APIs for creating a comment, viewing all the comments, editing a post, deleting posts. So that actually is a complete application. And what we had discussed yesterday was just about creating and listing all the posts. Now, if we have time at the end of today's session, I'm going to go over the APIs for comments, but I've made sure that the code that is shared over GitHub has been properly documented. So you can go through it, you can read it and understand what's happening. Now, we are going to start today with designing the UI for this, and we're going to use the same backend that we worked on yesterday. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a new front-end project, and while the backend project is running on the local host port 8080, just like we had it running yesterday. So, um, I have created some sample posts so that we can start off with listing the posts, and then we can move over to writing, creating a post, and having user login, user registration, etc. So I'll get started now. To create a front-end project, I'm going to use something called Beat. So this is the page for Beat. I'm going to link it in the chat. Um, can you please tell me if the level of zoom is okay for all of you, or should I zoom in more? Okay. So Beat is a project builder which helps us scaffold front-end projects. So it supports a lot of front-end frameworks like React or Vue or Svelte or Solid, and it helps us in customizing the kind of front-end project that we want to build. So that is the reason why we are going to use Vite. And there are other ways to start a front-end project. Each and every way is. Indra, can you elaborate on your question about NPM support? I actually didn't fully understand your question. Continuing on what I was saying, uh, there are ways to create a React project using something called as the Create React app. Is my audio okay for everyone? All right. So there are a lot of ways in which we can start a React project, and all of them are listed down in this website for React. This website is a very good place to learn the concepts of React. I'm linking that in the chat. So if you go to Learn React, it has quite a good stepwise instructions of how we can get started with React and what are the things that we can do with React. So if I go over to installation, there is a whole guide of what are the ways in which we can create a new React project. Now, we need Node.js, just like we have used Node.js for our backend. We're going to need Node.js for React as well. So the project that we create is also going to be a server. So this is going to run on a machine, and it is going to so we are going to make requests from our browser, and those requests from the browser are going to go to our front end server that is running on a machine. The front end server is going to give us all of the necessary files like the HTML files and the CSS files and the JavaScript files that is required for us to run our application. And then from our browser, we are going to communicate with the backend as and when we need data. So similar to how Express.js gives us a framework to build an API service, React, or more specifically, Vite or any of the React frameworks, they give us a way to serve React websites. So that's why Node.js is required, and there are two very well-known frameworks, Next.js and Remix. Now, these have a higher learning curve in a way where, along with learning how to use React, you are also going to have knowledge about how to navigate Next.js and Remix, which is why this has not been included in this course. What we are so the scope of this course is just to get you to understand how to make applications using React, and that is why Vite was chosen. But for very advanced front-end applications, it's recommended to go with Next.js and Remix. Now, I've shared the link to React. I'll share it again. Uh, these contain links to the respective frameworks. So if you want to read more about these, you can go ahead and read about them. And other than Next.js and Remix, Gatsby is a framework which does things a bit differently. So it's more geared towards blogs or content management systems, where you are, for example, writing a newsletter or a blog or something which requires a lot of static pages. So Gatsby is the framework to do that using React. Uh, it's not a framework where you can create advanced React applications, but it just makes the uh, process of having static websites or blogs or newsletters easier. So that is the specific purpose of Gatsby as a framework. Expo is a framework that helps us create React apps for Android or iOS or TV or Xbox or PlayStation. So what it does is it uses React and then helps us in building native applications for these operating systems. And what we are using is Vite, which is not exactly a framework, but it's just a tool which helps us run and deploy React. So there are two recommendations at the very end. If you read through the article, which is Vite or Parcel. Now, this is not suggested at the very top because it's a good place to start learning, but it doesn't scale well when you have production use cases. So you can read the rest of this page. I have given the link to this, but I hope I've made it clear about what we are building and why we are using Vite. So we are going to go back to Vite, and to get started, we basically, okay, I had a question about NPM support. So I have actually not tried very old NPM versions. So I have worked with Node.js 16 and above, and Vite works fine with those. Now, you could install Vite in an older version and see whether it's supported. If not, then you can try upgrading your Node.js installation and then running Vite on top of it. Okay, so these are the options in which we can create a front-end application. There is vanilla, which is a very simple project where we do not have any libraries. It's just a set of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript pages. And there is Vue.js, React.js, Preact, Lit.js, Svelte, Solid, and Quick. Now, these are all libraries that helps us create UI. Each and every one of them have a few advantages or disadvantages over each other. Now, the choice of React was done because it's the most popular framework out there. And once you learn React, it's very easy to learn the other frameworks. And most of the times, if you are working on a project, it will come with React. So it's a good starting point, and basis on how you want to deep dive into, you can move to learning other languages as well. So the very first thing that we have to do is we have to run this command npm create Vite at the rate latest. So I'm going to open up my editor. So for those of you who did not join yesterday, I'm going to use VS Code, that's Visual Studio Code. Now, Tenzin, if you want to create an application that sends or receives messages, there will be a few things different that you'll have to do. So the APIs that we have created, these are good for creating one-off requests, but for instances where there are a lot of requests where you are sending a message and someone else is sending a message, for those cases, something called WebSockets is a good use case. So I'll write that down. So this is not in the scope of this session. So you can search about it and read more about how you can do it. A good way to do that is to search for how to build chat applications, which will give you a lot of articles online or videos on YouTube if you prefer videos. So for sending and receiving messages, that is a very widely used protocol. And for sending and receiving files, it's a bit more complicated, where you would have to set up a server which has file storage. So, uh, yeah, basically, there is a service called Amazon S3, which is basically a storage service. So you will need to use WebSockets and Amazon S3 for file transfers so that files can be saved into Amazon S3, and then the other person can download that file from there. Okay, so I had to close the browser, so I've lost a lot of the tabs, so I'll open them again. So this is the very first command that we use to create a new Weed project. So I'm going to run this, and it is going to help me create a project. So it first asks a few questions that I can answer. So I'll name the project Reddit frontend, and I'm going to choose React as the framework, and I have options to choose TypeScript and JavaScript. Now, TypeScript is basically JavaScript with types. So in JavaScript, we do not declare the types along with declaring variables or functions, unlike other languages like C++ and Java. So what TypeScript does is, on top of JavaScript, it allows us to define types that can be used for better safety and better development experience. Now, that's not in the scope of this particular course. So we are going to go with JavaScript. Now there are two options. We can use the default one, and we can use something called as SWC. So I'll give a small brief about SWC. So SWC is super fast web compiler. Sorry, it's speedy web compiler. Uh, so this is basically a compiler program that bundles our JavaScript in a much faster way than the traditionally available compiler, which is Webpack. So if we choose JavaScript without SWC, we are going to get Webpack as our compiler. So I will put the links of both of them. So Webpack is the uh, original bundler. It's written in JavaScript. Now, it's been the default for many years until recently. People have used other ways to build compilers and bundlers. The purpose of these compilers or bundlers are to, first of all, uh, take up our source code that we write in the most modern versions of JavaScript, and then convert it into JavaScript code that is old enough for older browsers to understand. So we basically take up uh, the code that we are going to write, all of that is going to be written in the latest versions of JavaScript, and the compiler or the bundler in the background is going to convert them into versions of JavaScript that can be read by older browsers. And that is how we maximize the compatibility of all the code that we are writing. So Webpack is the default one, and SWC is a new way of compiling, where it is using Rust as a language instead of JavaScript. So Rust is basically faster, significantly faster than JavaScript, and that's where it gives better performance. So I've provided the link so that you can read about these, and basically, yeah, that's all that it does. Now this does not concern the project that we are using today, so using both would be fine. Choosing SWC will give you better performance, so we are just going to go with that. So we have selected React and we have selected JavaScript with SWC, and the project has been created in a folder which is the same as the project name. Now all I have to do is I have to cd into this project. So instead of that, I'm going to open this project. on VS Code, and it's a new project, so I'll trust. So the new project that has been created comes with a few files. So this is the default version of Beat. So if we go to README, it basically gives us links to check out, you know, plugins and what technologies are being used here. So you'll have access to this when you download the source code. So we are now going to go file by file, but we'll first start the server. So to start the server, we have to okay, yeah, we have to work on these commands. So we are going to first have to install all the dependencies. This is very much like the Node.js and Express project that we had worked on yesterday. So I will first run npm install, and then I'm going to run this next command when npm install finishes. So npm install is going to create a node modules folder, and it is going to create a package log folder. I mean the package log file. Now I've explained about these in yesterday's session, so you can go back and watch that session once you receive the recordings and check out what these mean. So I'll run the next command, which basically runs the server for me. So the server has started. It is showing Vite version and the time it took to make the server ready. And it's saying that the server is available in this link. So I'm going to go to this. And once I enter this, I'll see a default web page that was created. So this is what Beat creates for us by default. It is basically an animated logo and a regular logo with a shadow and a counter. If you click on this, it is going to increase the count. So all of this is written in React. Now our server is running, so that is all that we need in the command line. I'm going to minimize that for now and let the server keep running in the background. So now that we have the server running, I'm going to go through each of the files and folders to basically explain the different things. So node modules is a folder that houses all of the libraries and dependencies for our project. So Om, we are actually running a bit behind on time due to the screen sharing issue. So you can go to this website that I have linked, and you can check out how you can create a project. It's very nicely written in the website. So I'm sorry, I will have to run a bit faster right now. So there is a public folder here, which is basically a way for us to deliver static content. So in the public folder, we have beat.svg, right? So if I go to this and slash beat.svg, I'm going to get this svg file. So anything that is static, that does not need any programming, any files that we just have to transparently provide from the server is going to be put in the public folder. Now, SRC is a short form of source code, and source code is where we write all of our JavaScript and React and CSS code. So I'll come back to this. Now, ESLint RC is basically a configuration file or a settings file for a program called ESLint. Now, ESLint is a program that helps us do spelling and grammar checking. Not really spelling checking, but grammar checking for code. So it's basically similar to grammar checking, where if I make a mistake, I'll get a red underline or a yellow underline, just like Word. So this has basically some rules about what kind of so this has some settings about what kind of rules to allow, what kind of rules to block, give an error, give a warning, etc. So this is not of our concern for this course. Gitignore is a file that will basically ignore the files, or it will kind of cancel those files from being uploaded to Git. So uh, we use a service called GitHub, which is basically a place where I can host my code, and then any of you can download the code from there. So we upload the project using a program called Git. So Git is a program that helps us, with version control, and it helps us upload projects, download projects, and basically work collaboratively in a team. So you can learn more about it in Git SCM. So I'm going to link it here. Okay. Now this is basically a set of patterns which mention the files that will be ignored while uploading to GitHub or any other cloud service. And then we have index.html. So this is the HTML file which is sent over to the browser. Now, whatever code we are writing is going to be on top of this HTML file. So no matter what page you are going to open, this HTML file is going to go to the browser, and then from here, the rest of the code is going to be executed. Package log.json is basically a dictionary file which is useful for the server to understand what versions of each dependency needs to be installed. So package log.json is created when we run npm install, and it takes a snapshot of the node modules folder. Package.json is a file that we create, and we put in some metadata about the project, like the name and the version, and basically the dependencies for this, what kind of libraries we want to use. So this helps Node.js and NPM download the dependencies that we need, so that when we run our code, the dependencies are available locally in our computer. README is a file which is basically good for documenting everything. So this uses a language called Markdown. So there is this wonderful website which tells us about what Markdown is and how you can use that. Now, I'm going to link it here, but there's not much I'll go through about Markdown. It's not in the scope of this course, but you can read this or you can watch videos about it by searching for Markdown. Now, the very last file is the Vite config. So this is settings related to Vite. Now, we've created a React project. So React as a plugin from Vite has been installed under plugins. Now, for more advanced use cases, we may need more plugins, and we can put all of them here. Now, these these are the files that we get. There's not much that we need to do about these files. The only thing that we need to consider is our source code folder. So in the source code folder, we have a file called as the main.jsx, which is the starting point of uh, the React project. So over here, what is happening is we are taking an element with the ID of root. So if we go back to our index page, we are seeing that there is an element with an ID of root, and this is the root of our project. So whatever code that we write in React is going to take this element as our root. Okay, so it's taking this root element and it is rendering the React application. React strict mode is basically a wrapper which helps us in uh, finding out issues early by implementing some strict rules on development. So when we are developing, then we will get a lot of errors and warnings if we are doing something that is not basically a best practice. So there are a lot of mistakes that we can do with React, and having strict mode allows us to, uh, you know, be someone who is telling us about the mistakes so we can prevent them before pushing to production. So strict mode only works on development. It does not work when we deploy this into a server. And application or app is the app that we have. So if I go to app, then we have a React component. So this function that is written is basically termed as the React component. So it is a function which does something and it returns uh, UI in the form of JSX, which is JavaScript in an HTML format or XML format, actually. So this is very close to HTML. So if you look at the HTML page, the syntax that is inside of the HTML page is similar to the syntax that we see over here. So that's where learning HTML actually helps us with knowing a lot in React ahead of time. So if you learn React, then you will be able to write HTML properly and vice versa. Now, this is not always the case with other frameworks, and that is why React is more easier to learn than other libraries or frameworks out there. Uh, so we have our main JSX, which basically starts our React application, and we have our app JSX, which is the very first file from which we start our project. Now there are CSS files here, which are going to give us with the style definitions, or it's going to help us define our aesthetics. So all of these things like center aligning all of this in the page and giving this bold font and putting this button and these shadows, the colors and everything. This is coming from the CSS file. So we actually do not need the CSS file. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete the index CSS file. Now this index CSS file is basically referenced inside our main JSX file so that this is applied to all the pages. So I have removed this, so I'm going to remove the index CSS file as well. So you will see that some of the aesthetics have gone bad now because we have removed the CSS. But I want to start from a very clean slate. So I'm going to remove what is unnecessarily. I mean, I'm going to remove what is unnecessary and start over. I'm going to do something similar with app.css. I'm going to delete the file and I'm going to remove the import. Okay, so now we have no CSS in our project altogether, and I'm also going to remove all of the code from here. Okay, and I'm going to just keep an element, and I'm going to write hello world over here, and I'm going to remove all of these imports as well. Okay, and now all we have in our page is hello world. at the very top. We have removed all of the default things that were given to us. I'm actually also going to remove this assets folder, which was being used for the purposes of the default program that was given to us by Weave. We don't need this anymore. Uh, so in the Weave program, react.svg, which looks like this. So this is the React logo, which was being used on the web page, and that's why it was put in this folder. Now, there is no convention of putting any folders or files here. Uh, Everything that is inside of SRC is our choice. We can organize code over here according to our likes and wants. So I'm going to delete this assets as well. And the wheat logo that was being used previously, I don't even need that, so I'm going to delete it. Okay, so public folder right now does not have anything. Now we have the app.jsx where we are going to start writing our code. Okay, so what we need to do according to the so we need to start creating our posts. So the very first thing that I want to do is I want to get the list of all of our posts. So to do that, I'm going to use something called as React hook of use effect. So use effect is provided by React to us, and it is a way of putting any side effects that we may need. So getting data from the backend is a side effect, and this is a side effect. This is called as a side effect because we are doing something that is external to our application. So there are things that we do which is inside the scope of our application, but getting data from an external API or website or anything that is external to the application is basically a side effect. It's not a main effect, it's a side effect. So for any of the side effects, we are going to use this function called the use effect. Use effect takes a function that needs to be executed, and it takes the list of variables which this function is dependent on. Okay, so um, I'm going to need this, and I'm going to need another construct of React called as the React state. So what I need is a list of posts. Okay, so I will have to take use state from React as well. Now, use state is basically another function provided by React which helps us in building state. So state is a variable whose value is immutable, but it contains data that we can modify using a function. So this is different from a regular JavaScript variable like x equals 5. I can change x to 6, at any point. But for a variable that has been declared using state, we we basically can, but if we try to do that, then we are going to get grammar errors in our code. So if I change post to 5, I'm going to get post is constant. So I should not be changing the value of post. So over here I get errors that post is declared but it's not, never used or it's never read, right? So these are the kind of errors that we get from ESLint, the program that I talked about, which helps us with grammar errors. And on the browser, if we open up our console, you can do that by right clicking and clicking on inspect. You can also do that using the F12 key on your keyboard. So I'm going to put this at the bottom and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Okay. So we have the console, which basically is a place where we can either log things in JavaScript, or we can see errors that are coming in our project, or we can see warnings. So the strict mode that we've used is going to give us errors if we do something that is against the practices of React. So whenever we get an error here, that is because of either React giving an error or JavaScript or the browser giving an error. So useState basically gives us two things: a value and a function that can change the value of this variable. So what I want to do is I want to download posts and I want to set that list of posts into this value, the value of post. So to do that, I'm going to use functionality in JavaScript called as the fetch. So fetch is a function that can go to an external link and it can download content from there without reloading the page. So uh, if we, for example, click on a link in any website, it takes us to a different page. But in this case, I just want the data in the same page. I don't want to go to a different page. That is where I will use the JavaScript fetch. So I'll use fetch here and I will mention HTTP localhost. It is running in 8080 and it has a URL of posts. So the list of posts, as discussed in yesterday's session, is in the form of the list of posts comes in the form of a get API. So get is an HTTP method which is taken by default if we do not specify any HTTP method. Now we have a way of specifying method by using the settings. Okay, so we can specify the method. Since get is the default, even if you don't specify the method, it will work the same way. So fetch is an asynchronous function. So it is not going to basically block JavaScript. So you cannot do something here. You cannot do something here in a way where this line is executed only after fetch is executed. So that is not possible with fetch, and that is why we have to use something called as a then function on top of fetch. So when fetch is going to download the data, then we are going to run this function, which is going to uh, parse that data into JSON format. So if you recall the APIs that we've created, all of the responses that we send are in the JSON format, right? And that is why the content that we receive needs to be parsed into JSON. So when it is passed into JSON, then the data that we received, it can be put into posts. So when I do set posts here, it is going to change the value of posts. but the value of posts initially is a blank list. So what we are going to do here is we are going to say posts. Okay, so basically posts is a list. So what we do is, you know, post is a JavaScript array, but we want to build UI on top of it. So we have a function in arrays called map, which takes an array of something and gives an array of something else. So it's basically a function that will take the array of posts and it will give us a list of UI elements. So we can use dot map, and within map we will have a function which is going to give us post. Okay, and within this function we can basically have a UI element like this div. Okay, so if I run this, there are basically two posts that I've already written in the database for convenience. So what we want to achieve is something like this, where we have the username or the name of the author who's written the post. We want to have the time and whether it is edited, and then the content, and then these buttons. So now that we have the data for the post, we are going to design this card. Okay. Now we can write the whole of the UI inside of this app, or we can actually uh, divide pieces of UI into more components. So just like app is a React component, we can make more components and then use that within our app. So that is what we are going to do. What we will do now is we will create a folder here called components, within which I will create a folder for post. So this is going to be one post. And within that, I will create a JSX file. So JSX file is basically a special JavaScript file which can read the syntax of JSX. So now that we are in a new file, what I'm going to do is I'm going to export a function. So uh, since we are using Node.js on both the places and the backend and the frontend, a lot of the concepts coincide, right? So just like in the Node and Express server, we were able to kind of import and export things. So it's a bit different because the Node.js and Express application that we were using uses an older version of JavaScript. So we were using something called module.exports equals, and then putting our things here. Now this is so Vite helps us in writing code in a newer version of JavaScript. So instead of writing all of that, we can just simply write export, and it is going to export. And instead of using require like we were using yesterday, we can use this new syntax called import from. So this comes up with the newer versions of JavaScript. So within post, I want to return some UI. So I'm going to return this is a post. Okay. So instead of using div here, I can write post. Okay. I do not need anything else here. So key is basically something that is used when rendering a list. Key helps us in identifying which item list in the list is which, so that if we are creating a new item in the list, then we don't have to create the list from scratch. We can actually preserve the previous list and add an item at the bottom, in the middle, at the top, wherever we want to. So when using key, we can identify each and every item in a list. So when React has to basically create a new item in the list. So for example, if I create a new post, then what I can do is I can tell React that a new post has been added into the list, and React is going to only show that new post, and it is not going to rewrite the whole list. That is the property of key. Now, key should have a unique uh, value. So every item in the list. So we are using post.map, which renders a list. So every item in this list should have a unique value. Now the underscore ID is guaranteed to be unique from the server. So we can use that. If you do not have anything that's unique, then map function gives you an additional index parameter, and index parameter is basically going to give you the position of that item in the list, which is natural numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4. So that will be unique for every item. Since we are already getting a unique ID, we are going to use that instead of index here. Okay, so now if I do post, so the IDE has automatically imported post from the components folder, right? So now I'm getting this is a post, but what I can do is provide the values of each post into my React function, so I can put dynamic data. So right now I don't have any data, so I'm writing this is a post, but I can pass on data. So to pass on data, all I can do is, um, you know, I'll pass on this post using this. So this is called as a prop or a property of a React component. So we can have many kinds of props in a React application. Now, the key is basically a special property, so it is not passed down to the post. So within here, I will not be able to access the key, but I can access post. So now that we are passing this, let's consume the props that we have passed on from the previous component. So within post, I can use props, and now I have access to things like props.post. So the name of this prop was post, so I'm going to use props dot and then the name of the prop. So props.post.body, which is going to give me the body of the post. Okay, and I can also use props.post.author.username, and it is going to give me the username of these posts. Now you can see that the ESLint program is giving us errors because uh, within this file, we don't even know what props is. So to do that, what we can do is we can define uh, what is the structure of the props that we are receiving. So right now, our application is receiving the post data at runtime, meaning that while the application is running in the browser, it is getting all of that data. But while we are writing code, we don't know what is the shape of that data. So that is where we have a library called as prop types. So prop types is a library that helps us in defining the type of props in React. So I'm going to link that in the chat. Basically, what we have to do is we have to first install this package. So I'm going to stop the server. I'm going to run the install command, and then I need to import prop types. So since we're using the latest version of JavaScript, we can use import here. Okay. Now the next thing to do is use the name of the component and use dot prop types. So I will have to write post dot prop types equals and this, right? So there are various types that are available in the prop types. Instead of writing all of those, I will just put them up. So within post, I'm getting a property called post, and this is going to be of a shape of this. So let me actually I will restart the server using npm run dev. Okay. So let's see all of the data that we are getting in here. Okay. So from the API, each post in that list of posts basically will contain an underscore ID. It is going to contain a title body. It is going to contain the author. Within the author, I will have details about the user ID of that author. I will have the username, right? So I can do props dot post dot author dot username. I can do that easily like that. I will have comments within each comment. So a comment is basically of the same shape and structure, right? So uh, it's going to repeat the same thing. It will have a body, an author, username, and it will have the timestamps. So creation of the post and when the post was updated. So I have all of this data available from the API. So where do I get this? I'm getting this from here. So there is a network tab, and the network tab basically contains all of the network information or what has been exchanged over the network. So we have a lot of files that are going passing through between our browser and the front end server, but this posts call, okay, this was called from localhost 8080. So I will expand this a bit. So this was the request that was made. The method was kept, and we received a 200 response or OK response, and we have gotten some headers from the response, and we have sent a few headers from the request. Okay, so I'll not get into the details of this, but basically on the preview tab of this, I'm going to get the response. So I can take a look at response. So I'm getting a list, and then within each list there is a post. I have an ID, I have a title and the body, and author information about what is the user ID and username. And within comments, comments is again a list within which I get the ID, body, author, and the timestamps. So the shape that I'm defining over here is coming from the data that is available to me. So I've said that ID is a string. So I've mentioned that underscore ID is a string. I've mentioned the title is a string. So if I am confirmed that you know this data is going to be available at any cost, then I will mention is required. If that data may or may not come, then I can skip the is required. Okay. For example, for comments, now the comments may be there, it may not be there. So if I look at the second post, there are no comments here. Okay. So I have not put that is required over here. And other details I'm getting, and I will get it no matter what happens. So I've put is required on all of them. And just after declaring all the prop types, the error message went away. But there is another cool thing that has happened where we now get, uh, okay, so So the autocomplete or the code completion is not working right now. But when we define everything, we basically get automatic completion as well. But if we are defining something that we don't have, for example, if I write password here, then ESLint is going to tell me that this is, yeah, not something that you have. So for example, if I save this and go ahead, then my application shows nothing. So I don't have the attribute of password. So just because I did everything correctly here, now the editor is instructing me whether this data is available to me or not. So if I write underscore ID, I have that information. So it will let me go with that. I can write username, which I also have under author. If I write anything else, it will give me a red mark. So this is very much like how Word helps us in avoiding mistakes. So Anirudh, you will get the recordings. I have pasted the YouTube link of where the recordings will be posted. It's not available right now, but it will be. These recordings will be uploaded at a later time, so you can scroll up in the chat and then find it. So let me start building the structure. So to build this structure, I need to first make this line where I need to put the username on the left side and I need to put the uh, timestamp on the right side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first, so I have a div which is the outer div, okay, and within that I will create an inner div which is basically going to be the first row, and then I have this second row, and then I have this third row. So I'll make three rows. So within this div now I will put an h2 with, so h2 is a part of the heading tag. Now we have heading tags from h1 all the way through h6. So h1 is the first heading, h2 is the second. So these are basically levels of headings. Okay. So I've chosen h2 here. It is arbitrary. You can choose anything else. You can choose any value between h1 to h6. Um, and that will work the same way. Now props dot post dot body is what I'm no, over here at the top I'm on the author username, and then I want another div to show two pieces of information here. So I want span here. Span is basically an element for rendering a portion of the text. So over here, I will say that so I want to show this conditionally. So if a post is not edited, I don't want to show this at all. So what I will do is I will put this in curly braces and I will use a JavaScript expression to basically tell uh, React whether I want to show this or not. So when do I want to show this? I want to show this when these two values are not equal, the creation and the updation. So whenever I make a change in the post, then the updated at automatically changes, right? So the values of created at and updated at, they drift. Let me show that in the MongoDB Compass. So I have one user here, which is Pranchal. I have a few posts and a few comments. So every comment is also a post, and I will get to the reasoning behind that. So this is the first post that I have, and let me actually write body here to identify which is which. Yes, so let me write something else is also a post. Yes. So this is one post and this is the other post and then this is a comment. So what I've done in the database schema is I have added a parent property. So a post which has a parent basically is a comment. Okay. So this helps me achieve something like this where this is a post but it is under this post, so it gives me that level of hierarchy. So this one does not have a parent and that means that it is the top level post. So this post does not have a parent. Similarly, this post does not have a parent, which helps me understand that these two are top level posts. And then the other posts will have a parent, which basically link to its parent post. So D8 to BC and D8 to BC. The ID of this post is equivalent to the parent of this post, which means this is a comment to this post. Okay. Similarly, this is D8 to 86 and this is D8 to D6, right? So this basically is a comment to this comment, which is a comment to this post. This helps me create another level of hierarchy. So this is similar to how we do things in Reddit. So in a Reddit, we can have uh, post and then we can have a reply. That reply can have a reply which in turn can have more replies. So we can cascade replies, and the parent property within each of the posts is helping me with making that hierarchy. So this is giving me a tree structure where this one with the parent of null is at the top, and then there are comments which go under that post, and then there are other comments which go under the sub comments. So that is how it has been structured. And the API for the post, it also helps me, get the post, get the comment, and this only helps me with getting the first level comment, and then I can make more API calls to get more comments from these. So over here, I have received enough data to show all of the posts and then the first level comments. So I can basically show this post and I can show these two comments. I will talk about this nested comment later. Okay. So the advantage of this component is it is reusable, right? So what I can do is for each of the comments that basically use the same shape as the post, right? So the comment has a body, author, created at, and updated at. Post also have a body, author, created at, and updated at, right? So what I can do is I can again render the same thing, right? So uh, over here I can say uh, for each comment now I can uh, return the same post once again. So I'll write post here. So I'm recursively calling this post. So over here I need to provide the value of post, which will be the comment. And it says that I have to provide a key because this is a list. I'm mapping on a list. So I need to provide the key. So I could have very well missed the key, but just because I have ESLint, it is telling me that this is something that is important. Okay. So if I save this, so title is a problem. Let me remove title. Okay, so this is happening because the top level posts have comments, but the comments don't have comments. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a check. So if the comments exist, then I'm going to render this. So this is conditional rendering, where I'm checking whether the comments exist. If it exists, then the comments will render, or else they will not render. Okay. So now I'm getting the post and the two comments under that post. Okay, and I'm getting the second post as well. Now comes the part where I can put some aesthetics. So let me start off with that. Now to put aesthetics, I need to write the CSS files just like the ones that we had deleted earlier. So I'm going to start off with writing post.css. Now there are two ways of creating CSS files in Weave. We can write regular CSS files, but regular CSS files will be merged with all the other CSS files, and only one CSS file will be given out. Now that means that I cannot use the same class names for different components. So for example, if I want to use a container class in my home page and I want to use a container class inside of my CSS page, then there will be a conflict, and the styles of, I'm sorry, there's some effect here that came out. The styles of the page are going to come to my card or vice versa. So there are those conflict problems that will happen. Now, against this conflict, there is a way by writing module.css. So module.css now creates a separate file with separate class names for post. So anything that we write within module.css is not going to conflict with any other React component. Okay, so now I'm going to put a container class. Okay, and in the container class, basically, I just want some inner spacing. So I can provide inner spacing by giving a padding. So I will give a padding of 16 pixels on all sides. I'm going to give a background color of white. Now we can represent colors as hexadecimal values. We can represent colors as their names. So I can write white here. We can represent them by their composition values, which is RGB, where I can give the red component, green component, and blue component on a scale of 0 to 255. So uh, you can yes. So there is documentation here on how colors can be used, and I'm going to link that here. This is some reading material for you. You can go through and see, what are the ways in which we can define colors. We are going to go with the simple way of defining the name of the color. Uh, the most popular way of doing this is to use the hexadecimal values like this one. Okay, so I'm going to give it a color of white. I'm going to make the corners rounded. So I can do that by using a property called border radius. I'm going to put a radius of 8 pixels so that it's rounded that way. And I'm going to put some box shadow. Okay, so shadows are a bit complicated, so I'm not going to go too deep into those. But basically, you can take a look at just like colors. You can take a look at box shadow in CSS. So this is a whole guide on how box shadows work. You basically have to define how much horizontally it should be offset, how much vertically, and what should be the color, what should be the spread and blur. So there are a lot of those things. Um, so this is also a good thing to read about. So there is a shadow that I have already prepared, and I'm going to use that. Okay. So that's there. Now I want the width of this to be just enough to fit the contents. So I don't want it to be very big, like uh, the whole page's width. I just want it to be enough to cover whatever space is required. Okay, so uh, I'm going to then. I think these are sufficient styles. So I'm going to put the style by importing. So I'm going to import this variable called styles from the module CSS, and this is going to give me the class access to the class names. So I'm going to put this here. So the name of my style is container. I will write styles.container. Okay, and now I'm going to start getting. So I've started getting these hierarchies. Now I'm not getting the shadows properly because there are. So I have one card inside of a card inside of a card. So actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate out the card of a post with the rest. Okay. So I'm going to put the comments outside of my card. Okay. But I need this hierarchy. So first of all, you will see that there are some default styles of HTML that has come in. So the browser comes out with some of the styles that can interfere with our way, and this is also inconsistent between browsers. So to solve for this problem, we have something called as the reset CSS. So I'm going to link that here. This is also a good article about why resetting all of the browser specific styles is a good idea, and it has the code for reset. So I'm going to put the link to this for you to read. Okay, and I'm going to take the code of what is available on that website, and I'm going to put it in a file called reset.css. Now notice that I'm using CSS extension here because I want this to be available globally. Okay, so this basically takes all of the HTML elements and it removes all of the spacing, big fonts, and everything else that gets in the way. So I'm going to save this, and within my main JSX file, I'm going to import this CSS file. Now notice that the syntax for importing a regular CSS file is different. You don't import styles from this, because this is treated as a global CSS file, but uh, the CSS file that we are writing here basically means that these styles are specific to the component. So all of these names are going to be given out as variables instead of the style dictionary. And that is why you import styles from module CSS, but you don't need to import styles from a regular CSS file. Okay, so now we have all of the CSS, all of the uh, regular CSS that is given by the browser has been taken out. So what I will do now is I will write my own CSS for everything, the box and the username, body, comments, and all of that. So for the author name, what I want to do is I want to use a font family of monospace. So this is a monospace font, and that is what I want to use. So this is going to make this different, and I want to also make this large in compared to. So the body is small, but the author name is large, so that's why I want a large font here. And I also want the font to be bold. So I'm going to set the weight of the font to bold. So it's heavier than the actual this thing. So yeah, it's bold, and I also want the okay. So the color is actually already black, but I'll still keep the color to black. Okay, and now I'm going to put the class name of styles dot author into this. Now on the CSS file, I have defined what the author you know style should do, the aesthetics, and over here I have linked the class name of author to this element, and this is where you're going to see the change happen. So now this as this is using a monospace font, and it is kind of big and bold now. Okay, so I also want to now put my comments in a div. Okay, and what I want for the div is basically have a comments style, and within this what I want is I want some margin from the left, which is this margin. So this is going to help me understand whether a comment is a top level, a post is a top level post or a comment. So I'm going to put a 20 pixel margin on the left side, and there we have it. These are the two comments of this post, and these two posts are top level posts. Now for each post now, I want some spacing. So I'll put a margin bottom here of 16 pixels, and with that I have some space. And within the application also I want some space from the top so that it moves a bit inside. It's sticking to the top right now, so I will do that by putting styles onto the app. So for the app I will create a new style file called app.module.css. And now since both of them are module css, I can actually use the same name. So I have used the name of container in my post file, but I can still use the name of container in my app file, and these two will not conflict. So over here, what I want to do is I want to keep a padding of let's say 32 pixels, and I want to keep a background color of a little bit of a light bluish tone. Okay, and I am going to go to the main div here, and I'm going to put this. So I'll first import the styles, and I will put it here, and I will save. So I want more lighter color. Let me try light gray. Uh, nope. Okay, I think I'll just stick with the light. No, this is too light. I'll just stick with light blue. Okay, and this the contents of this page finish here, and that is where this finishes. So instead of this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that the minimum height of this page should be 100 vh, which means 100% of the height of the viewport. So this is my viewport, which is the visible area of my screen. So I want it to be at least 100% of the visible area of the screen. Now, the height can be more if required, but I want at least that much height. So with that, this background covers the whole page, and now I don't have to care about, you know, uh, making the contents big enough to fit the screen. Okay. So there we have it. We have the post and we have the comments. Now within the post, we can do some more styles. So we can style this. So I'm going to call this as the header. Okay. And for the header, which will house the author as well as the timestamps, what I need to do is I need to make sure that there is one item on the left side and the other item on the right side. So this is achievable by something called as flex in CSS. So the display should be flex, and I want to justify. So justify is way of putting two elements, horizontally. So I want to choose space between. So space between, what it does is it puts two elements at the very ends and puts space in the middle. Okay, so that is what I'm going to do. And the problem here is that the body should not be a part of the header. The body should be separate. Okay. So within this now, just like I've used a condition here, I will use a condition here. So I will say if props post and the created app is not equal to props post updated app. Okay. Okay, so I had created an extra div, and that's why there was an error. Okay, so with this now, we've gotten edited on two of these. So two of these have been edited previously. The rest are fresh posts. Okay, so I need to have these brackets. So that's what I'll do, and I also need to put the creation time of the tweet. So I'll do that. Okay. Now I need to have some space here, but I have actually not defined any space between these. So what I'm going to do is for the header between these, I will put some space, and I'm going to do that by putting a column gap. So I'll put a column gap of 32 pixels here. So there is space in between these two. I will actually increase this. I would want more space. So I will put this to 64. Okay. And then I have space between these two. So for that, I can put a new class name, and I can put, I will name this metadata, because this is metadata about the post, whether it's been edited or whether the like when the tweet was done. Okay, so I'm going to have styles for metadata, and within metadata I want, so I want the same thing, putting a gap in here as well, but the display flex property actually takes up the whole space. It takes up the whole width. It does not allow any other element to exist in the same line. So if I make this container as flex, then it is going to move to the next line, because there is one element already here. So to counter this, there is another way of using inline flex, which basically allows us to uh, use flex while being in line with other elements. So here I'll put a smaller column gap. I am going to put an 8 pixel column gap. Okay, and the text is too big. I want it to be small. So first I'm going to change the font family to an Arial like font family. I'm going to keep the size small, and I'm going to give a grayish color. Okay, so saving this, it looks styled now. Okay, now I want to have some space between the name and the body. So what I'm going to do is within the header class, which is taking up this entire line. So this entire line is under the header, right? So header has the username, metadata, edited, and the dates. So I'm going to put the margin bottom of 12 pixels so that there is some space between the name and the body. Okay. So with this, we have more or less the styles ready, and there are a lot more styling things that can be done on top of this. But I'm going to pause it over here, and I'm going to now move over to creating a new post. So we have seen how we can list the posts. I will cover how we can create a new post. Okay. So the job of the post here is done. I'm going to remove this, and within the app now, I have a list of these posts. Each post has its own post, which is like a comment. Okay, so that is how we basically can nest more and more UI. The next thing that I want to create is now the post font. So I'll go ahead and create that. So I want a post form folder, and within that I want the post form JSX file. Okay. So we'll get started here, just like how I was doing it for post. So okay. So for the post form, I would need a form. So I don't need action here. And within the post form right now, I don't need any props because it's a simple form. When I kind of hit the submit button, it should create a post. I'll actually also keep network on so I can show what is happening while creating a post. Okay, so within the form now, I need two things. I need the text area, which is the kind of an input box where I can write my post contents. Okay, so I'll need this body. I'll, I actually don't need to give any ID. I don't need to define rows and columns. So I'll just take the default values here. Okay, and I need a submit button which says post. So these are the two things I need. Okay, and I'm going to put the post form at the top. Okay, so now I have the text box and I have the post button. So what happens is I'm going to write some post here. And I'm going to click on post, and it should go ahead and send this post to the backend, and it should create this post. Okay, so just like I have loaded the posts using a fetch, the process of sending posts is also going to be through the fetch function. So I'm going to create a function here, uh, create post. This basically, so the HTML form here, it is going to, uh, the default behavior of the HTML form is to the default behavior. So the very first function that I will call is event.prevent default. So prevent default is going to basically prevent the default behavior from going ahead. Now, this form has data, and right now we are using a very basic implementation of a form which only has one field. But in a form, there can be multiple fields. There can be like 2, 5, 10, whatever. It can be a long form, right? So it can have a lot of fields. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to extract all of the data using form data. So I'm going to call this form data, and there is a JavaScript function called as the form data. Okay, the extension for that I'm using here, which is helping with me with the code, is GitHub Copilot. So this is an AI-based program. So you can try this out. I'll put a link to this. So there is a 30-day trial to this, after which it is a paid tool. So you can try it out for 30 days. If you like it, you can pay for it, or you can uninstall it. So it actually helps in suggesting code. Okay. Uh, Third post a comment of second. Okay. Let me go back. So if I go to the post, the top level post is not going to have any margins. So the first post and the fourth post, these are top level posts. And the comments here have a style of comments, and this style of comments is basically uh, nothing but a declaration of margin. Okay, so only comments will have margin. The top level posts will not have margins. So what you see here is this is the top level post. This is a comment for this post. This is also a comment for this post, and this is another post. Now, if there is a comment for this post, then it is going to have more margins. So let me just hack into this and add a margin here. Okay. So a comment to this post, a comment to this comment will appear like this, which is similar to how I have shown it here, right? So every comment will have some indentation. Um, is that fine, Venkatesh? Did I answer your question? Okay. So David has a few suggestions of good VS Code extensions to have. He's put a link over there. So I would suggest all of you to, you know, go through it and figure out what are the kind of extensions you would like to have. Now moving on. Um, so we are discussing the form. Now I want to extract all of the form data. So everything that I'm writing in this is coming in the form of body. So body will have some, uh, you know, content. So whatever I'm writing here, that will be a value of the body. So to access that, I'm going to now take data and use object.from entries, which is a function in JavaScript that takes up entries and creates an object out of it. So this is going to take the data from this HTML form, okay, convert it into form data. From that form data, it will take all of the values and put it in an object. So it is going to look something like this. Okay, so this is the kind of an object that I will receive with this function, where I will convert form data into entries, and I will convert this entries from entries data structure to object, to JavaScript object. So that is where I'll get this. A more simpler approach to do this is to individually get the entries. So let me actually go with that instead of complicating it there. So what I want to do is I want to now use fetch. Okay. So now I want to use the method post. Okay. And I want to have a body. Okay. So this API actually also requires a title. So I'll give some random value here. Okay. I'm not going to build UI for title right now. It's not in the scope. So, but just because this API requires title, I'm going to put sample. I'll write sample post. Okay. Yeah. So I want to declare that the type of the content is JSON so that the server can understand that this is JSON and it needs to parse that JSON. I'm going to put this JSON body inside of the body parameter. Method will be post because now I'm creating a post. Now I'm not listing posts. Okay. And I also need to uh, send over my credentials. Okay, so this means that I'm going to have to include my authentication token. So for those of you who have attended yesterday's session, we have gone through how login and registration can work, right? So I had talked briefly about cookies, where registration or login APIs are going to set cookies into the browser, and uh, every request that goes after that will contain that cookie value. Now, browsers have a security feature where you can choose to include or exclude uh, the cookie data, which has authentication details, right? So the default value is exclude, where you can see that any request that I'm making, the request headers, um, let me reload this. Yes. So for localhost 8080, you can see that the cookie is not going along with the request headers. So I'm going to enable sending cookies by setting the credentials to include, and this is going to include the cookie along with the request. Okay. So I want to do that, and in case this fails, I want to use the JavaScript alert, which is like an alert dialog. I want to take out the error message and I want to put that on the alert, so that if the API fails for some reason, I can see it in the UI. Okay, so I'm now going to put this inside of the on submit of the form. So with this now, I should be able to create a post. Okay. So this API call did not go through. Let me see what's happening. Yes. So I have included the credentials, and now just because of that include, you can see that this cookie is going and it is sending over all of the cookies that I have. And if you look here, there is an auth token cookie. Okay. Now, if you recall yesterday's session, or if you will watch yesterday's session on recording, you will see that there was an auth token cookie that was being sent from the server when trying to log in or register. And this auth token cookie had to be sent to the server on every subsequent request. So this is what is happening here. The auth token cookie is going over there, and it is being used to create a post on my name. So right now we have not handled anything here. So clicking on post actually made the request, and we've gotten a response also with the new post ID, but it is not reflecting here. So for now, we are going to reload the page, and we'll see that the post that I've just written, that got written here. Okay. So there are things we can do over here where we can inform uh, the top level component that a new post has been created. So let's kind of refresh the list. So those are the things that we can do. uh, for now, I am going to skip that, and I am going to address the last portion here of formatting the date. So the date here says 5 minutes ago, 2 minutes ago, but it's formatted improperly. And basically, this is we are going to make sure that this date is actually properly written in a way where it tells us how much time has passed instead of telling us the exact date and time. Okay. So I'm going to stop the server, and I'm going to npm install a module called date fns, which is short for date functions. So date fns is a library which gives us some functions that work with JavaScript dates. So we can, like this one, we can format date, like I can say that today is a Sunday. So Sunday is something that's not available in JavaScript, right? So we can get date FNS to do that. I can write, you know, time difference like 3 days ago. I can do other sorts of things with that. So this is a library which helps us with dates. Now we can do this by ourselves, but it will result in a very big piece of code where we compare seconds, minutes, hours, days to find out how many days, minutes, seconds, hours have passed since the post was written. So that's why we are using this library so that that comes to us at a convenience. So I'm going to link this library into the chat. Okay. Now the specific function that we're looking for is format distance to now. Okay. So format distance to now is going to take my date value, and it is going to compare that date value to the time right now, and it is going to give me a difference in the amount of seconds, minutes, hours, days, or whatever, right? So I will install datefns. That is the name of the package. I will restart the server. Okay. So now I will go back to post, and I have this new date, you know, where I am going to write created at. Okay, so I want to write the creation date over here by the side of edited, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to import the format function from format distance to noun. That is the uh, function inside of date that we're looking for. And I'm going to put this everything inside of the format function. So the date of created at is now converted into difference using this format function. So now it tells me about 4 hours, 5 hours, or 6 minutes. Now the next thing that I can do is I can write the word ago by the side of it, and it will tell me, 5 hours ago, 6 minutes ago, etc. Okay. So in the interest of time, right now we are going to stop over here. The code for the backend server is has already been hosted on Git, and I'm going to put this code as well on Git, and I'm going to make sure it's well documented for all of you to understand what is happening. If you uh, have any questions that were unanswered, then you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm going to put the link to that as well. But yeah, for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to answer any questions that you have. So, David, yes, the relationship between a post and a comment is one to many. Uh, one post is going to have many comments, but what has been done over here is that uh, there is a self-reference from a post to a post. So I'm going to put that up. Okay. So we had discussed the user schema yesterday. I'm going to skip that. For the post schema, the changes from yesterday is that I have added a parent. So the parent is self-referencing this. So a post is intended to be a post as well as a comment. So a post with a parent is basically a reply or actually a comment, right? And I have also listed down comments here. Since this is a self-reference, I am going to have to put both of these things, right? So I am going to have to say that one comment is a part, has a parent of post, but I will also have to say that this post has a lot of comments, right? So that is the relationship here. So if these were two different entities, what I would have to do is post would just have comments, and then the comment would have the parent. It would not have this, right? So let me actually put this on the side so that I can explain this to you better. So consider doing it the other way. I mean, not using the same schema. So if I have a comment schema, then what would happen is I would not have comments here. I would have parent here, and here I would not have parent, and I would refer to comment. Okay, so basically this is how the relationship would be between a post and a comment. And if you're using Rails, then basically this is something that you would do on your model uh, in a way where you basically, I think the easier way to do this would be to try making this relationship, because uh, one to many relationships are easy to implement. And then when you're done with that, you could try doing a self relation uh, over there. Okay, I'm not getting the exact article, but this is going to be a good starting point, which talks about many to many self relationships. Um, and if you are, able to find out something that's more in line with this, then that's something you can try. And there's not much I can help with Ruby on Rails, because I left that 10 years ago. So yeah, with that, that's all I have. So thank you everyone for joining. I'm going to wrap it up now. Goodbye and see you.